life is short. So make sure you're doing things that bring back energy. And that's what the wonderful thing is of doing something that's purposeful, is that as much as you're expending energy to do it, the fact that you know why you're doing it brings you back energy. And that's the glory of it, to get through all the shit and the challenges of the hardships of entrepreneurship.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Leadership Stack Podcast, the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs to increase your leadership, teamwork, and profits. This is your host, Sean C., aka Mr. CEO at 22. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Today we have a special guest for you again, all the way from the other side of the world. And he's been here to the Philippines more than a couple of times, 4 times, I believe. And he has been here, loved the country, did our history, actually knows more about our historical stories better than me. And his name is Minter Dial. He is a keynote speaker. And he is an author. He has written the books and he has filmed this book title, actually, The Last Ring Home. You might want to check it out. It's on YouTube. Just type it in. If you're listening here or you're watching from YouTube, The Last Ring Home. We're going to have that on the show notes right after this. And I am so privileged to have him here and learn from him. And so will you guys. He is also the author of Artificial Empathy, Putting Heart into Business and Artificial Intelligence, which won Book Excellence Award 2019 in the technology category and was a finalist for the Business Books Award 2019. Now, he has a long, extensive list of stuffs that he has done, and I am super impressed. You're going to have to look it up because it's going to take me an hour to go through all of this. I don't want you guys to wait, and I don't want him to wait. So Minter, thank you so much for being here on the show today.
Sean, thank you so much for having me on. I love the fact that you're going through all my things, and it's been a whirlwind journey. It's always fun to hear my life replayed back to me.
Well, the Leadership Stack team has done an excellent job going through researching on all of our guests before I do the interview. And the topic that is super interesting to me, which you mentioned earlier pre-show, is about purpose in marketing and purpose in business. Now, a lot of the hype in the startup scene today is about profits, is about getting investors, is about pitching to VCs and angel rounds. Almost no one talks about purpose. Almost no one talks about the big why. I want to know, why do you think it's not talked about so much? And how would people get in touch with that within themselves?
The reality is purpose can't be put before profitability. It has to be put with profitability. And the risk or the fear that people have is, well, if I move away from profitability into this other purpose, my profitability will fall through the floor. And so generally, pragmatically speaking, it's important to get the numbers in. You've got to be profitable. If you're not profitable, I don't care what purpose you have, you serve no purpose because you will not continue to exist. So there's permission allowed not to think of necessarily only about purpose. I certainly talk about avoiding the tyranny of purpose. On the other hand, a business without purpose has a lot of other risks. And one of those is burnout. Just succeeding for the sake of succeeding, so you can get your 2 houses, 2.4 kids, and the title that makes you look important, doesn't actually provide you with intrinsic energy. These are external objects that people look at. So the key point, the real reason why you want to dig in on purpose, is to figure out why you exist and how you're going to make the world a better place. And when I say the world can be your house, your street, your town. It doesn't have to be huge, Mother Teresa-like. It can just be more than you. And when I say your house, I mean, obviously it's the wider network of your household. How will the world be worse off if you don't exist? That is the question you need to answer when you're running your company.
I think more people would start businesses thinking more about how to monetize it, how they can be profitable, and how they love doing that stuff. a lot of entrepreneurs would start it out as a hobby and then try to figure out a special way maybe of how to monetize that certain hobby that they have. Where in that journey usually do they have to think about purpose? Because it usually is not at the forefront of your mind. There are entrepreneurs that start out with a purpose, I do agree, and they work with passion and they work with love, and they're willing to spend a couple of days on the streets, not eating cup noodles for that to take off. But a lot of entrepreneurs don't start out that way. A lot of them start out, I love doing this and maybe I could make money out of it. Certainly it was the case for me. And I'm asking you, before I answer that question myself, somewhere in the podcast, when is the time do you think that purpose should be thought about in that journey?
All right. So you mentioned this notion of looking for monetization, and obviously people want to monetize, but a lot of times people actually are trying to solve a problem. I have this problem. What if I could solve this problem for other people and I could turn that into a benefit and therefore value and therefore money and make a business? By itself, solving that problem becomes meaningful. And when I look at purpose, I go through a scale that starts at being meaningful all the way up to higher purpose. And so if you're doing something that feels meaningful to you, you're solving someone else's problem that I was having, that feels purposeful. This is something that was killing people. This is something that makes people work 6 hours more than they have to. This is making someone's life successful, someone else's life successful. That is a purpose. But within the smaller categories or the lower end of the scale in meaningfulness, doing something that's a challenge and succeeding in it. All right, I've got to figure this out. I really want to make this happen. I got to do that. That by itself feels meaningful. It's not purpose, as I like to describe it, for the bigger world, but you're doing something that's kind of, it's gritty. I had to bust my butt. We did it as a team. Yay. God, that felt great. The endorphins kick in. We've got something happening. It's meaningful, but it's not the big purpose, because just achieving a shitty task day in, day out burns you out. Unless you can tie it to something bigger, that means that you're making the world, or you're contributing to making the world a better place. So the notion is looking at finding ways within what you're doing that's meaningful, helping all members of your team to understand how they are contributing in a meaningful way, and not forgetting to do that just because got to do the work. Allowing the time to explain why they are useful, why they are contributing, why they are valuable, and listening to them makes them feel valued, gives them a sense of meaningfulness. So a lot of the work is so small, but just make sure you're doing things that are meaningful, or at least a portion of your day that's really meaningful.
Would you say that this purpose should be translated to a purpose statement, and how different would that be from a mission and vision statement?
The answer to doing that exercise is, I would say, a question of scale. Most of the time, you don't need to write it, just do it. There's nothing worse than saying something that you don't do, right? That is a great avenue to being called out and creating eye rolling. I'm like, just another stupid purpose. So better to do it. And then as you get bigger and you're hiring more people, you then do need to, at some point, communicate what your purpose is. It can't just be the best kept secret inside of your brain. And then you need to figure out how to explain it to other people. So the storytelling that comes into it, and sure, you need to communicate it. So the notion of your purpose is why you exist. You can turn that into a mission statement. Our mission is to make the world a better place. Fine. And then your vision is, how are you going to get there? That's the way I interpret it. And, there's pretty much a book on every other version of how mission, purpose, and vision are separate. But that's how I do it. And I feel that if you are building your business, you're an entrepreneur, just like the question of brand, it's not necessary to think about it right away, but you do want to start integrating it as you go along. And you do want to consider how and what is your brand and what is your purpose and how you're living that purpose every day. Because as you're saying, like the guy who's out on the street, living on the street for 2 days, that's okay for a certain time. it's not tenable over the long haul. So you got to be profitable. And two, life is short. So make sure you're doing things that bring back energy. And that's what the wonderful thing is of doing something that's purposeful, is that as much as you're expending energy to do it, the fact that you know why you're doing it brings you back energy. And that's the glory of it, to get through all the shit and the challenges of the hardships of entrepreneurship.
So a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs or employees who want to start their own thing. And they're wondering, like I was wondering way back when, is, okay, purpose statement. I know what I want to do, where we came from, the history, what problem we're solving. But when is that time when I actually have to put it on pen and paper? You mentioned when the team is growing, it has to be cascaded and communicated. When is that time? How many people would I need in the team for me to start thinking about doing that? Because it is important for them to know why they're doing what they're doing. If it's just me, then I'm the one getting energy from it, but they don't know how their work or output helps the world be a better place. They don't know the purpose why we exist. A lot of grassroots employees, they just know that this is what I do, I get paid for this, and that's it, and my boss is happy, and that's what matters. How do you grow out of that, and how do you cascade it to your team? Do I need to repeat it to them every day, every town hall meeting? How do they remember that?
All right. So the answer to that, there's multiple levels of answer to that. But the first one is, what are you trying to achieve? So you're an entrepreneur. You want an idea. You've got your business idea. You've got your concept. But have you thought deeply about what are you trying to achieve with this enterprise? Actually, what are you trying to achieve with your life? So at the beginning, we were talking offline about looking maybe 5 to 8 years out. What about you, Sean, at the age of 65? What's happened? Who are you at that age? Obviously, that's a long.
Probably a hermit. No, but yeah, you're right. One of my life goals is to write 100 books. I don't know if I could achieve that, but that's one of the bucket lists. It used to be just to write and publish one book, but now it's to write and publish 100 books before I die.
Well, you see, that's the difference between you and me, Sean. When I was 18, I wrote down my list of 6 things that I wanted to achieve in my life. And I only wrote publish once. And the interesting thing, and I also said I wanted to speak 5 languages fluently and a few other things. But I got, as you're young, you put sort of little flags in the sand, and they're just numbers. I mean, why 100? Why not 99? Why not 101 like the Dalmatians? And the key point then becomes how that's fulfilling something that's deeper than just the number, because otherwise that's just a number out of hot air. And so the feeling behind that 100 books should be linked to, or presumably can be linked to, a bigger fulfillment. So my mission or my purpose is to make the world an easier place to live online, for example. In order to do that, this is how I'm going to do that. And my bucket list, or the components to go into the how, that's how we quickly jump. But the challenge really is moving from your purpose to why it's important to you. You can give yourself an ambition. You obviously have a strong ambition. Why is that ambition important to you? And what is it tapping into in your deeper soul that is important to you and then the world? And until you've done that work, the how you end up doing it, which is 100 books, isn't quite as sustainable, because it's not based on a bedrock foundation. And the trick and the problems that so many of us have, especially, when we have the fortune to be able to make many choices, go online and how many books could you buy today? I mean, the choice of books that you might buy is huge. The number of tabs you probably have open on your browser is a lot. There's so many options in front of us. How do we navigate those in the limitation of 24 hours that we have in our day? And so when you do the hard work of figuring out what's your precise purpose, not just some broad idea of, I want to help the world. Okay, that's so good. I want to be healthy. Sure. I want to be wealthy. Okay, why? You need to be a more precise north, but then you need to figure out what are the values that are underpinning that north, that purpose. And then the how becomes much simpler, much more understandable, and, by the way, more easy to accomplish, because you know why you're doing it.
This pandemic has allowed us to step back and kind of see things in a way where it's blank. And I don't mean blank na zero or olats na siya. But I mean blank in a way that everything can be restarted. So franchises are also struggling right now.